we're coming to the last keynote of today. Our next speaker closing our program is an award-winning designer, a writer, a producer, and he has been recognized for both his technical as well as creative expertise. Let us dive into 2020, the future of digital media. I kindly welcome on stage Danny Rogers, founder and CEO, Novare Media. Welcome,
Thank you very much.
Hello.
Well, here we are. First of all, I should apologise. If you hear a buzzing sound, that's my phone in my pocket because I just posted a picture of myself and Jimmy Wales on Instagram. So, let's get to the beginning. Good afternoon, everybody. And before we get started, I should probably clarify what's about to happen. You see, I'm not really qualified to speak to you about technology, and it's important that I point that out. But my not coming from a technical background doesn't mean I don't have any expertise or that I can't contribute something to this discussion. Because I come from a different perspective, I'm the end user, your target market, and I'm here to discuss what a huge impact technology has had upon my industry in general and my career and business in particular. So why have I been asked to speak? Well, what is it that I do and what requires such a high level as technological uptake? Essentially, I'm a storyteller. The visual media that we create in my company, the films and television programs, commercials, music videos, documentaries, everything that we produce, they're all just different forms of storytelling put into the digital space. As a filmmaker, a professional storyteller, if you like, it's become an essential part of our business to embrace technology in a way that will enable us as a company to tell those stories just as well as we can, but more importantly, to as many people as we can reach. Now, this is not a matter of vanity, not even remotely. I can assure you, it's simply a matter of commerce, because the more people we can put our content in front of, the more successful our business becomes. But I'm getting ahead of myself here, really. So, as a storyteller, I'm going to begin with a long-established phrase. Once upon a time. Many years ago, a young man travelled from his home in London to the other side of the world. And this young man had a burning ambition to be a filmmaker. And so, at the age of 21, he flew to California. He wasn't really sure what to expect when he arrived. And he certainly didn't have a real plan as to how he was going to break into the film industry. But it's also important to point out that he had no real understanding of how the film industry operated. But like many other people, he was drawn to film like a moth to a flame. And he did have one key ability, and that ability was his gift for communication. I'm sure by now you're asking yourselves, what has all this got to do with the technology that you're presenting? And I'll try to explain to you. There is, as I hope to illustrate, a great deal of confusion surrounding who should be credited with inventing the movie camera. By the late 1800s, Thomas Edison had invented a rudimentary camera that was known as the peep show, though its actual name was the kinetoscope. The camera was capable of recording moving images, but they could only be viewed by one person at a time, and they had to be viewed using the device on which they'd been recorded, so they were essentially the flip books of their day. And by contrast, the Lumiere brothers had developed their own camera, which was known as the cinematograph, from which we still take the phrase cinematographer. This camera allowed the projection of its output onto a screen to be viewed by an audience, and it's therefore considered the first movie camera. So they're the Hollywood ones you're supposed to see. During this period, movies were shot on a very fragile and expensive form of perforated cellulose triacetate, known as film stock. Once movie making began to get into its stride, filmmakers would buy or actually hire their movie making equipment, cameras, lighting, everything else that's needed to make a movie. And it was a very, very expensive thing to do. All of this meant that making a film was cost prohibitive. But more than anything, it was the film stock, the processing and editing of their work that was the greatest expense, and therefore a barrier to many potential filmmakers. And so for the first major innovation, we are going to leap forward almost 100 years. It's 1980, and a very significant patent is about to be granted to a 57-year-old American inventor named Jerome Lemelson. Everything was about to change in the world of film, and all because of one thing. Lemelson had invented the camcorder. This one advance meant that the ability to create content came to potential filmmakers almost overnight. Fortunately, our intrepid young traveller, who I'll reveal later, was part of that movement, and the opportunity to communicate through the medium of film was about to be opened up to him completely. Not immediately, of course. He hadn't yet arrived at that point in his career, but the opportunity was definitely coming his way. It took a while for the camcorder to become fully adopted in filmmaking. There were all kinds of movements attempting to obstruct the progress of this new technology. And the Film Forever initiative was instigated by Kodak, and it's the perfect example of this. I have no idea why, as the world's largest manufacturer of film stock, they'd have any interest in trying to discourage people from shooting digitally, but I'll leave you guys to figure that out. You're all clever people, I'm sure you can work that out. The traditionalists were against the adoption of digital recording at first, much like the Luddite movement in the UK in the early 1800s, when a band of workers took it upon themselves to destroy all of the automated machinery in the woolen mills of northern England. They did this because they believed that technological advancement would take away their jobs and destroy their livelihood, their ability to earn money. Their actions were extreme, but to a certain degree, understandable. I'd even say that in some ways I hold a similar opinion. I believe it was Walt Disney who said, if we need to find a way, we need to find a way to have technology serve us, not allowing it to replace us. But keep things moving on, and so eventually digital filmmaking was adopted by the industry and became the norm, the principal form of capturing the moving image, though obviously the cameras have moved on a bit in 40 years. To that, very expensive. The development of video recording may seem very significant, and believe me, it was. But technology was just getting started with the film industry. The advances that digital recording brought with it were numerous. Instant playback via on-set monitors so the director could see what he or she had captured from the actors. Less complex digital editing, sound recording and post-production. The filmmaking process had been streamlined, and a new generation was embracing it and benefiting as a result. This was the first real step in the technological revolution, but there was a great deal more to come. If the camcorder was considered a shock to the industry, it was about to experience a change that felt as if the San Andreas Fault had opened up and swallowed the film business completely. The next great leap forward was, throughout the 80s and early 90s, in order to get your product seen, there were two options: terrestrial broadcast, traditional TV, or cinematic release. And there really wasn't anything else available in between. And you see, distribution, actually getting it out there, is the key to everything, the key to my industry. I once read a quote by a great British filmmaker, Academy Award winner Lord David Putnam, which went something like this: people seem to believe that if you make good enough movies, all else will be okay. But this is a distribution-led business. If you get distribution right and make the right decisions, then this is the route to long-term happiness. Well, Lord Putnam was right, of course. If you create a work of genius and all you can do is show it to your friends at home on your computer, then you're going to struggle, aren't you? Then you see all of this innovative material was being generated by these exciting young filmmakers, but despite this newfound freedom to create, it was still very, very difficult, almost impossible, in fact, to find an outlet for the finished product, no matter how good it was. And you can feel as artistically requited as you like, but if you can't find a route to your audience, then you're going to fail, aren't you? It's common sense. So a change in the distribution process was what was needed. And that change was coming big time. And it was called satellite television. In 1994, a company called DirecTV launched the first digital satellite system in the United States. And others followed in quick succession: the US-based TCI, Time Warner in '96, On Digital in '98 in the UK. The growth meant that suddenly there was a proliferation of content-hungry digital broadcasting. Ted Turner and Rupert Murdoch in the 1990s, now Jeff Bezos at Amazon, Reed Hastings at Netflix, and the new players, Apple TV, Disney, are launching their own platform, BritBox. They're all launching platforms, and they are coming thick and fast, and it's not going to slow down anytime soon, believe me. We can't stop this ever-expanding desire for instant gratification. However, these companies can have the best and the fastest broadcast infrastructure imaginable. But without content to stream, they're in no better position than our friend sitting at home on his computer, are they? So now there's a rapid development of digital broadcaster-owned production facilities across the globe. They're moving into established film studios and making their own shows. Digital broadcasters are creating their own content, and a great deal of it too. TV drama, documentary, feature films, children's entertainment, family shows, animation, educational. The list is almost endless, and all because the capacity to broadcast that these organisations have is infinite. It's a paradox. On the one hand, we have producers, we're constantly being told that digital platforms are literally screaming out for content, and that they are even commissioning series based just on a concept, what we call a log line. They keep telling us that there's a shortage, but with them producing their own content, we're getting to the point where there's a surplus. If you don't believe me, there you go. In 2018, Netflix alone produced over 700 original series. That's 4,200 hours of TV that they own outright. As a consequence, more independent feature films and short-form content than ever before, especially art house films, the things that make our industry work and grow. Films on a micro-budget. It's impossible to achieve any form of distribution. The market's been cornered. And with the collapse of that traditional distribution window, the fact that we all now consume screened entertainment very differently to the way we did in the past. Laptops, tablets, phones, they've all replaced television and cinema, really. The number of smartphones on this planet now outnumbers the number of human beings. How or how much we watch varies across demographics, but this means that there's ever more demand for content. And if there's more demand, then we as a business, as an industry, we must succeed, yeah? Well, perhaps not. Because that success or failure now sits in the hands of these new distribution giants. Video on demand has become the new broadcaster, the new television network, the new cinema, all wrapped up in one big package. And with the proliferation of content being created by both the traditional filmmakers, the smaller independent producers, and the VOD platforms themselves, it really is like the Wild West all over again. And let's call it the new digital frontier. So it's back to the drawing board for the less well-established content producers, looking to get their work in front of consumers, hence the success of the open video platforms like YouTube and Vimeo. The creatives attempting to take control of the distribution of their own content, playing the long game, being prepared to go unpaid, just at first with the promise of revenue later down the line. I'm very fortunate that our content is good. In fact, some of it's even great, if I do say so myself. But it's no better or more valuable than anyone else's if I make the wrong decision regarding its broadcast or distribution. I was chatting with my lawyer about this recently, and he reminded me of a great anecdote. He said, Danny, your business is a lot like being on a train sitting opposite a beautiful girl. You like her, so you smile at her. But as you smile, that train enters a tunnel. Now, you know you did it, but she doesn't, does she? So ultimately, it was completely pointless because she didn't see it. Same scenario applies here. If our work has no outlet, it may as well remain just an idea, because if no one sees it, what was the point of creating it in the first place? So what have we learned from all of this? Well, certainly the early adoption of technical innovation is key. To thrive, we need to innovate as a company. So with the advances coming thick and fast, it's just as important, it's essential, in fact, to stay ahead of the technological game. Here's the perfect example of how technology pervades every aspect of our business. 10 years ago, if we wanted to get an aerial shot, it would require a helicopter, a pilot, a very expensive camera with a very expensive lens on it, a complicated and expensive gyroscopic mount called a gimbal. Now, if I require the same shot, what do? I call the drone guy, and this happens. Now, call me wrong, but you can be the best helicopter in a pilot in the world. You're not going to fly through a building, are you? And it also saves me a lot of money, and that's the key. So modern media really has become so much more a technology-led business than the creative process it once was. In my opinion, it's the better for it as well. Some complain that the artistry has gone. I just believe it's changed its form. The improvements in cameras, processes, lenses, innovations like motion capture, motion control, CGI, compositing, computer-generated modeling and rendering, even sonar scanning, literally painting with light, mean that the line separating cinematography from animation has become this thick. Before you know it, we may even be able to get rid of all those actors as well. That would be great. Don't laugh, because there are plenty of people out there who think that we're closer to that than you might imagine. And how about this for the perfect example? My wife, Emma, who's in the audience, she works in the stunt profession. She coordinates and administrates the British Stunt Register. She recently shared a quite incredible video with me showing how Disney Imagineering has created autonomous robot stunt doubles capable of performing flawless acrobatic stunts perfectly, safely, time after time after time. Add motion capture to that scenario, some computer-generated compositing. Before you know it, stunt performers will be nervously looking over their shoulders. Don't get me wrong, I know latter-day Luddite, obviously, but for those of a certain age, it could become a little worrying. I'm sure you'll agree. But thankfully, I've been assured that they'll never, ever be able to replace the producer. So nowadays in filmmaking, it really is a matter of what you can perceive, you can achieve. It's a brave new world of filmmaking, if you will. And production companies really do have no alternative, none whatsoever, other than early adoption of these new techniques and innovations. Because if we fail to do so, we run the risk of our output looking outdated before it even makes it to the consumer. Oh, sorry, we're on that one. On the other side, the distribution side, I'll go back to Lord Putnam's quote from 2011. Producers have been forced to begin thinking like distributors. With this in mind, we have developed our own distribution mechanism for release in 2020. Years in the making, ours is a device-agnostic, light-on-bandwidth, fully integrated, backward-compatible platform with its own fully integrated, frictionless payment system, and just to premiere our own content. And as I'm sure you can imagine, my CTO wrote that part. So. But in reality, there's nothing revolutionary about the way we run our business. Nothing whatsoever. It can be summed up in a few short sentences. It's all about the way you approach the problem. If you do so systematically, you will find the correct technology to solve it. Because as we all know, if you don't know what the problem is, well, good luck finding a solution for it. Despite all of this, I really don't know exactly what the future holds, because no one does. It's impossible to be that person. I'm a creative, and as I said earlier, the tech arena is not my strong suit. By the time you hear this, it'll have been thoroughly dissected by my CTO to protect me from any errors. I hope he's been successful, though, of course, maybe not. You'll be the judges of that, won't you? But the journey into the unknown is one of the joys of being in business. And I've found, so particularly in the entertainment industry, you must stay alert and be nimble and capable of sudden change in direction when required, the adoption of new technologies. Surround yourself with good tech and good people, and as a result, you'll end up looking good yourselves. So that's my story, and that's been my journey. Just in case you haven't worked it out, I've been talking about myself all along. It seems only a few years ago that I was that young man disembarking in Los Angeles. And I've had a 40-year career, and I'm hoping it's not over yet. Because you see, I love my work. Every day is a great day, an opportunity to learn, to discover, and to achieve something you never thought you could. And I can assure you that we at Nova recognise and appreciate the hugely significant part that technology plays in our company's success. And we will play, and will play in our success going forward, because it is and always will be the cornerstone of my industry. New innovators will shape the future of my industry through their dedication and expertise, and for that, I assure you, we are eternally grateful. So thank you to Darwin's Circle for giving me the opportunity to speak, and thank you to all of you for listening. And now I'm going to have a glass of champagne.
Thank you very much, Danny. Danny dropped the mic.